I was giving it some thought about this transition of ministry to, I was giving it some thought about this transition from ministry to independent nonprofit. First off, the environment that you're in, that you're working this transition in, absolutely is going to give you some indication or some direction of what to focus on or how your priorities in the process. For instance, our transition took place in a hostile atmosphere. The church that this ministry was a part of didn't want it to become an independent organization. It wanted it to stay a part of the larger church. However, this ministry was founded, funded, and supported solely by members of the community. Church members and community members who were not church members supported this organization and wanted the agency to continue to run this ministry as we saw the needs in the community. We won't talk about necessarily how we won't talk necessarily about how the nature of the church's hierarchy, the upper levels of the church, are exclusively male and not of color, and where almost everybody, 90% of the people who were involved in this ministry were of color and different genders, different ages, different income levels. We want to assume about income levels, not sure. However, this is probably a part of this added a layer to the dissension, to the disagreement. So when working with this hostile environment, there were some things that we needed to prioritize and do. One was creating a legal structure as soon as possible. That means being incorporated and having a 501c3 designation. And secondly, having our communications. That was really important. Even before we were able to operate, because our operations did stop for a couple of months during this dissension, during this uh, I don't want to be aggressive by saying battle or fight. During this transition, this hostile transition, the communications was key because people needed to know what was going on and why this ministry needed to be an independent organization, because it needed to continue to serve the community, and it needed to be run by the people in the community who had already been committed to it for over a decade. So communications included actual being factual with the disagreement. So everything that I put out there was factual, were emails, were communications that were in writing. No he said, she said. That part is important, I think, with this. Communications with the community, letting them know what was going on through community meetings and through community social media, mostly Facebook. That's our large part of our social media. Letting the church know what's going on, meaning the church leadership, and I let them know what's going on through emails and letters, and the church body itself, the people who were members of this church, because they were highly supportive of this ministry of the our outreach center becoming an independent organization and supporting the neighborhood. In fact, when the church closed, it closed with a lot of money, 6 or 7 digits. Why did it close? That's another story. But they the church would not give a dime to the food pantry. But even though that was what the church members wanted. So communication, going back, communication with the outer world as much as possible. We were talking to newspapers. We actually got one story in one paper, and we were about to get a story in another newspaper when the church decided to give in. Coming back to that. Getting our story out there on Facebook, just hammering what was going on, what we needed, what we were trying to do. Not being negative, just always being factual. Let's see, getting the story out there on YouTube, and just having others share our story. So, in the end, the church did acquiesce. They couldn't, the ministry itself is not something that is, that's physical. So they couldn't give or take that. The name of the ministry, they could have tried to take it, but we already took it. We had it incorporated because continuity is important. We wanted the name of the ministry to stay the same. It was named by former parishioners who had passed on and left the building to the church so we could run the food pantry and subsequent resource center out of it. They did give in and donated the building to us because it didn't affect their bottom line one bit. What was affecting their bottom line was all the negative publicity, because now the organization that the church wanted to take over wouldn't do it because they didn't want the negative publicity. So the church gave in to the board of our newly founded organization, and so graciously donated the building. But again, like I said, not a penny of the almost 7 digits that this church had in its coffers when it closed. So that is a hostile situation, and those are some of the priorities that we had. I'm sure in a cooperative situation, you're going to have different priorities, but as long as you know what your goal is. In our case, our goal was first independence and then survival. In a situation where the church wants to break the ministry off because the ministry is growing so much and there are benefits to it being an independent organization, an independent tax exempt organization, which there are, and that was one of the reasons that we wanted to be too. Being a part of the church had stymied our fundraising. There's only so much you can get. There's funds available for the things that we were doing, but not available to a religious organization. So if you're in a situation where it is cooperative, and you're needing to break off the ministry, or you're wanting to break the ministry off into an independent 501, you're going to have a different set of priorities that are probably going to start with survival or thriving, not independence like it was in our case. I'm going to continue to talk more about the other aspects of transitioning a ministry into an independent nonprofit through different videos on this channel.